Okay, I think I'm live on YouTube. This is new to me, so we're gonna figure it out together. But I'm really excited to have Sasha De Sola, principal at San Francisco Ballet, on my show today, on our show, 6 Feet Apart. Benjamin Fremantle will be interviewing Harper tomorrow, so don't forget to check that out. And let's bring Sasha onto the screen. Hello, Sasha. I can see you.
Hi. Yes, YouTube.
Okay, we're good. I think we're working.
Cool.
How have you been, first of all?
Oh man, probably the same as everybody else. But you know what? Overall, good, I have to say. Um, I feel really fortunate to be in a position where I'm healthy, my family's healthy, the people that I care about are healthy, and yeah, I feel very fortunate. But obviously, it doesn't come without challenges, so there's a lot of ups and downs, but overall, doing okay, as well as possible when we can't be doing our job and doing what we love to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a crazy time. Have you been taking class pretty much every day, or how has that been for you?
So I've been trying to take class consistently every day. Of course, there are some days where I just absolutely fail. Like today, I took class, but I had a mini meltdown in the class because I wasn't doing it in the way that I wanted to. And I just felt that I didn't have the same control over my body as I used to because I just have been dancing in such a small space for such a long time. Or it feels like such a long time now.
Well, it has been now. We're like past day 40 of
Yeah,
sheltering in
yeah.
place.
And we have a month to go.
Yeah, I know it's insane, and
Yeah.
I know we're all like grateful that we have a good apartment, that we're in, have all these privileges, but still, it's a weird time, and especially a weird time for our job. And
Yeah, completely.
yeah, I've definitely had ups and downs as well. And I think
Yeah.
it's good to talk about that too, because I know there's so much, in a way, so much pressure to like keep everything at the height and like pretend like everything's normal, but we have to have moments
Uh,
of breathing too.
well, I think that's just that's something that I think everyone struggles with in general is this constant tug between being and doing because I think as humans we have this desire, especially in today's world, to always be doing something, and we have to allow ourselves to be as well. And sometimes that means being really productive. Sometimes that means sitting on your couch the whole day and watching Netflix. Sometimes that means taking your dog for a walk. Yeah, so I think it's completely normal to go through all of these ups and downs. Everyone that I've talked to has expressed exactly the same thing, and
Allow yourself to do that too on some days of just like, you know what, I'm gonna
yeah,
I'm gonna Netflix or I'm gonna, whatever it might be.
yeah. On days when I'm having a really tough day mentally, to get motivated or to feel positive, I actually find that it's more effective for me to just take the day off and take it as just a relaxation day than it is to try to force myself to do anything. If I'm somewhere on the line, I'll try to force myself because I know how I am. If I just kind of start doing it, I'll get into it.
No, that's good. And I think it's nice to hear someone like you who is so successful and a professional dancer and a principal dancer at San Francisco Ballet that even it's not like you wake up every single day during this time like, let's go. Some days, but
Days, yeah, but most of the days, no.
yeah,
Oh no, I got a package.
that's exciting. Do you need to get it?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's just Tilly might be barking for a little while. Tilly, come here.
Olive is exactly the same.
Yeah, she's the guard dog, so.
Yeah. Our tiny little dogs are like gonna scare away everybody.
I know she thinks she's so tough.
Yeah. So I thought we would start at the beginning when Sasha
Yeah.
Sola was born.
Oh wow.
You were
That's
born in Winter Park, Florida,
yes.
and your parents are actually from Venezuela.
Yes.
Um, but you weren't born in Venezuela. You were actually born here. How long were your parents in the U.S. Before they had you?
So both of my parents, as you mentioned, are from Venezuela. They immigrated to the United States in 1981, and then I was born in 1989
Okay.
here in Florida. Yeah. So I grew up um, in a really, I would say I had a pretty idyllic childhood in the sense of I grew up in a really quiet neighborhood. There was not much going on, but by the same token, I also always felt a bit out of place growing up with two parents that were immigrants, that English is their second language. And while I feel that they assimilated to the culture really well and really, I would say quickly, um, I unfortunately I did experience some comments that were a little bit off-putting as a child. One of them being, I'm obviously very blonde, I'm very fair, and both of my parents have dark hair. I just got all the recessive genes, so that's pretty much what happened. But it was very often that people thought my mom was my nanny. They would ask me if my nanny would come and that sort of thing. Um, and I never really put all of those things together until later. But I think it created this sense of, since I was very, very young, this sense of needing to protect them and be uh, successful for them in order to protect them.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting to hear because, I mean, it is a crazy world, and we do tend to just even subconsciously think, oh, blonde hair, blue eyed, she's probably like the most American, and it doesn't take into account different cultures and upbringings. And
Yeah.
people are always surprised when you start speaking Spanish all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah.
A good like secret.
Yeah. It's a secret superpower.
And so, how did dance come into your life? You started dancing in Florida.
Yes, I did. So I think also this also plays into also English was my second language. I only spoke Spanish at home, and I learned English when I went to school. So when I went to preschool and kindergarten, that's where I learned English. And it was not a difficult transition for me, but I was excessively shy as a child. And when I mean shy, I mean very, very shy. I wouldn't talk to almost anybody. I was very quiet. But I always had this desire to perform. So I would have my family sit around and I would do shows for them. I would have my dad sing or my mom sing, and I would dance and do different shows for them. So,
Especially as like a shy child, that
yeah.
the performing was fine.
Oh, yeah. No, it was my freedom. It was my escape. It was my release. It was the way that I would communicate. And that's what I think still to this day is very attractive to me about dance is it's another way to communicate in a nonverbal way. And I think that it's, for me, it was the way that I communicated for so long when I was a child that it is such a powerful tool. I think I still find it to be excessively powerful. I think it's such a cool thing that we can communicate in so many ways. So to go back, uh, because I was so shy, my mom decided to put me into dance class. One, because I had that performance tendency, but two, because she thought maybe I would be able to kind of come out of my shell in a different atmosphere outside of school. And she took me to a kind of jazz and tap studio. I took class once a week. So you could say I'm a jazzerina. I started when I was 2.5 there. I mean, it was like movement class, uh, but yeah, as it went on, I mean, I loved it from day one. From day one, I loved it, and I really ended up focusing on the jazz competition dance for the first half of my student life.
It's amazing. Do you feel like having started with jazz and tap and those different dance forms shaped the dancer you are today?
Yeah, I think so. I think in positive and possibly negative ways, but mostly positive. Um, First of all, I was performing all the time because we would compete all the time. And so this kind of pressure that I think exists for ballet students that train more seriously, there was kind of a tendency to, back then actually, to shy away. That has changed now, but to shy away from competitions. And I never experienced that. I loved competitions. I loved meeting the other dancers. I loved having the pressure. I loved performing. So there's this certain sense of fearlessness that is kind of instilled in you, I think, if coming from that background. And then also the one thing that I really missed when I decided to focus on ballet was this sense of team. We really had a strong sense of team within our dance group.
True, because you go to
And
auditions and it's not only just solos, you probably also do
no,
all sorts.
it's a lot of group numbers. Like you do either a duet or a small group or a large group or even bigger than that. And there's such a strong sense of team. There's the competition team. You all have your jackets.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun for me that I remember those moments really fondly because they were really very precious to me. So in that way, I think that exists still in today's world and in the ballet world. Like, for example, with COVID-19, you see how strong the dance community is and how everyone's helping each other. But I experienced that kind of on a more intimate level, starting in that kind of setting, in the jazz setting.
Oh, that's amazing. So then what made you want to even try ballet, or how did you?
So I would take ballet, once I got a little bit older, I would take ballet about maybe once a week. I mean, not much. And I guess I was always viewed as the ballerina. I had some sense of gracefulness, I guess it was. I don't know what people saw in me, but for whatever reason, I was kind of considered the ballerina.
When you were little, from pictures, you had pretty feet and like, right?
I don't know. It's something within me. I don't even know how to quantify it.
Yeah. Okay.
No idea. Also, just by the way, Tilly came and sat on my lap. She wanted to
say. Tilly.
So my mom took me to go see what was then called Southern Ballet Theater, but now it's Orlando Ballet. And I saw a performance, and pretty much from then on, I knew. And I auditioned for the Nutcracker, and I got a role as a mouse, little mouse. And also a bonbon, which is equivalent of the clowns in San Francisco Ballet's version or whatever. From that moment on, I knew I wanted to do ballet. One, because it was very, very challenging. I loved how hard ballet was, and that I wasn't. I loved the challenge of it. I wasn't necessarily so obviously suited for it. It was something that I just really wanted to work for, I suppose. And two, I loved the structure of ballet. I loved the way that if you train properly, there's a syllabus and there are steps that you take. That was something that was always attractive to me as a child, even like in school, that sort of thing. I really liked structure.
Rule book, and like you can like follow the rules and then get the reward, and then that kind of.
Right, exactly, that sort of thing. Even though I think I have a really strong sense of self, so I don't always follow the rules so by the book, but I like knowing the structure, and then I loved watching ballet from an audience member's perspective.
Nice.
So those two things combined, plus the challenge, I think is what ended up making me want to pursue ballet.
Okay, nice. And then, so you started ballet in Florida, and
yeah.
What made you think of training somewhere else? Because eventually you went to Kirov Academy in Washington, D.C.
So I started ballet more seriously when I was 10 years old, and I trained with really great teachers in Florida from the ages of 10 to 13. but for for whatever reason, I was reading, I don't know if it was Point magazine or Dance magazine, and an ad for Kirov Academy came up, and I was immediately attracted to the ad for whatever reason. I knew nothing about ballet, seriously nothing.
Yeah, you're like, I
And
sure.
yeah, and I liked the picture, and I was like, sure, let's do it. So I auditioned, and I actually didn't end up making it into the summer program.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah, yeah. Many people, when I was just starting, 9 and 10 years old, told me I would never make it because I was trained as a jazz dancer, so I didn't have the same musculature or kind of the thought process to move in a balletic way specifically. Um, so there were many people who told me that I would never make it, and sure enough, I was waitlisted for the Kira. But they ended up accepting me, and I went for the summer program. And that for me changed my life because I learned what a really serious ballet school was and what it was like to work with other kids who loved ballet as much as I did and had the same dreams and goals and desires as I did. And that was really, really inspiring for me. And actually, for whatever reason, I must have improved in those like 4 months, but they offered me a scholarship to stay that first summer. But my parents, kind of understandably, because I was only 10,
Okay.
no, 11, 10, I'm not sure.
Young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they thought I was too young to leave and move to Washington, D.C. by myself, of course. But yeah, I mean, that was definitely transformative for me. And after that, I knew I wanted to go to that school. I just needed to wait for the right time. And so I kept training in Florida with my teachers there, which was a really great decision. And when I was 13, I decided to go to the Kirov.
That's
And
amazing.
that's,
So at 13, you moved north up the country
yeah,
from your family, from your brother, from your parents, and you lived in the dorm there as well, is that right?
I did. Yeah.
And what was that like, especially young? Were
Um,
you a kid that like you loved it and you were like, I'm fine being away from my parents, or did you miss home?
well, I'm a super sensitive person in general. Like I'm very, very sensitive. So no, I wish I was less sensitive. But um, no, it was definitely a difficult transition. It was easier because I knew what I was getting into. I had gone to the summer programs for 3 years, I think. So when I was 10, then 12, then 13. So I knew what I was getting into, but it's definitely a different story when you're there for an entire year versus 3 or 4 weeks. So it was hard, but at that point, I was so in love with ballet that nothing else really mattered to me. I was definitely homesick. I missed my family more than anything. Um, but I had the most incredible teacher there, Ludmila Morkovina, who she inspired me. I was with dancers that were 10 times better than me in my class, and that also inspired me. That pushed me so much. And so I was really kind of living for it. There was definitely a transition period, but after the first few months, I feel like I kind of got into my groove and I actually really ended up enjoying it. And I felt like I also found my people.
Okay.
I felt like I really connected with the dancers, and whereas when I was in public school, there were some people I would connect with, some not at all, and I just felt like I found my group, which was really cool as
Yeah,
well at
that's
that age.
something that is so special about being able to do this as a career and even just through training is
Yeah.
finding people that you can relate to, and it's something that I cherish that I don't think you necessarily as a young kid go in thinking like, oh, I'm going in for this reason, but it ends up, at least for me, and I know for you too, like being so important is those people.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
No, I love that. um,
Yeah.
so when you were 16
Hmm.
is when you joined San Francisco Ballet as an apprentice.
Yeah.
But how did that come about? Did you like know, okay, at 16, which is quite young, like you wanted to audition, or how did you end up getting that job?
So it was kind of funny. So I had gone to Jackson IBC and Varna IBC. And my partner that I was dancing with, um, he's he is a year older than me, I guess was a year older than me. And um, he was graduating that year, so that would be his last time dancing in the school. And I was kind of reflecting on what might I be doing the next year in school if I don't necessarily have a partner. And I knew I wanted to be pushed. I knew I wanted to work really hard, and I didn't feel that there was going to be a partner for me that would allow me to work on the things that I thought I needed to work on, which is potted work and, really kind of like building your base.
Right.
So I asked my dad, we got the videos back from Jackson, and I asked my dad to send the DVD to a few companies, one of them being San Francisco Ballet, the other one ABT, and the other one was Dutch National Ballet. And that was it. I mean, I told him to send them, and I thought, let's just see what happens. I'm sure nothing is really going to come of it, but just to test the waters, to kind of understand what it might be like to audition for a company next year, et cetera, et cetera. So I go to Varna, and in the meantime, I received some emails back from ABT and Dutch National, but I was in Varna, so I was concentrated on that. And I was flying back to the United States after the competition, and I land in DC, and my cell phone rings, and it's a 415 number. And I look at it, and I'm like, I don't know where 415 is
Right.
from.
I was like, you probably didn't know that at the time. That's San Francisco area code.
Okay. And I answer, and literally 10 minutes after landing, and I hear on the other end, Sasha, this is Helgi Thomason. And I just about like vomited. And then, yeah, I just thought my heart felt like it was up.
It's like not what you were expecting. You're like, oh, I mean,
The
calls weren't as often then, but still, you were like, I don't know who needs me. Like,
yeah, I never imagined. Um, and so he called me and said that he had seen my videos, and he asked me how did it go in Varna, and I told him, and he kind of told me some of the stories, and then he invited me to take class with the company.
okay.
So I obviously was like, yes, that would be amazing. Sure, I will come. And hung up and told my parents, and they were kind of taken aback.
Right.
Of course, my parents know nothing about ballet too, so they were, kind of shocked. And
They're like, why are they calling my 16-year-old daughter? Like, shouldn't they?
yeah, they didn't understand. They're like,
Right.
what is going on? And actually, I found out about a year ago that my dad almost didn't send the video to San Francisco Ballet at all because he was like, oh, it's fine. Who cares? It doesn't really matter.
She's not gonna get anything now anyway, so like,
He
well,
was like,
ton.
very lax about it all. And he told me this like literally 1 year ago.
That's amazing. Wow.
So that could have changed the trajectory of my life, but he did it. So here I am.
Yeah.
And so I mean, there were many challenges, one of them being how was I going to get to San Francisco as soon as possible when we didn't necessarily have a ton of financial resources to do.
It's not cheap, like ballet training, like luckily, so were you pretty much on scholarship the whole time in Kirov?
Yeah, I was on scholarship, so I was very grateful and fortunate for that because that actually allowed me to train there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to train there.
Yeah.
But then to go to Jackson and Varna, there were some very generous people that helped make that happen. That actually I've met, and later on, it's small world, but I've been very fortunate that people have helped me along the way. So anyway, I made it to San Francisco, and I got to stay with somebody who lived here, which they opened their home so generously as well. And I took class with the company, and it was all kind of a whirlwind. I didn't really even understand what I was necessarily doing here, if I was auditioning or not. I don't know. I think I was too young to fully grasp the situation.
Right, and you don't really know, like, I mean, for most part, like when you're told in a student, as you have to go to the cattle call audition, and then you might get a job from there, and so yeah,
exactly,
take
exactly.
company class.
I was like, what does that mean? I don't know, but I'll come.
That
And
made you more nervous or less?
oh gosh, I don't know.
Probably.
I was really nervous. I was really nervous, but I was used to, I don't know, I kind of would live for that, the nerves and the pressure. So I was nervous, but it was also fine because I don't know, I liked it. I don't know, it's weird. But, um, and anyway, on the third day, he ended up calling me into his office, and it must have been a ballet master meeting day or something, but every single ballet master was in the office.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, I know. Now looking back, I think how unusual, but every single person was in the office, and he offered me an apprenticeship with the company, and so obviously I said, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." I don't. I need to talk to my parents.
Right. You're like, I don't know how any of this life stuff works yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you had been living, but like in a dorm in Kirov alone, but still, like that's a
I knew how to take care of myself.
right.
You know, like how to do my laundry, how to basically feed myself, but I didn't know, you know, what a 403B was, or you know, all sorts of things, or how to find an apartment in San Francisco.
Right.
So I went home. I thought about it for a couple days and decided to take it. I mean, it was almost a no-brainer, but I did really consider not taking it just because I thought, am I too young? Should I stay in school? But in the end, I just felt that it just felt right, and I didn't want to miss this opportunity to grow in a different way. And I ended up coming to San Francisco.
And yeah, it's amazing how these things happen. And I mean, that one decision from your dad of like, am I going to send this DVD or not?
Yeah,
Totally changed everything. It's always amazing to look back at those stories and see how it all lines up.
yeah, you know.
So you are now a principal with San Francisco Ballet, but that didn't happen overnight. I know from being your friend and
Yeah.
dancing in the corps with you for years, as
Yeah.
you know. But so what were those different phases like? Because there were many years in between kind of each promotion.
Mm-hmm.
What was the beginning like, coming into the corps, even that apprentice year? How was that? And then 6 years when you're still in the corps.
Mm-hmm. So the first year was so hard. It was extremely, extremely difficult. I think I really had absolutely no clue what a company worked like. I was in a school that was not connected with a company, and while I had incredible training, I didn't understand what a day-to-day life in a company really was, especially being in the corps. I think in school I was pushed a lot, and I would do lots of variations and pas de deux, and I had never once in my life done corps work, ever.
And I think that's a lot of schools are like that. You know, they focus, especially if there's schools that do competitions, which I think competitions have a lot of great benefits, but you don't get that practice of like being in the corps, which is a very different experience.
Yeah. So it was definitely, I mean, coming from having a teacher that was very focused and kind of on top of me all the time, making sure I was doing everything right, to then joining a class of 80 dancers where you're the youngest with the least seniority. So you have to try to navigate that aspect of it, and still focus on your work and try to keep improving and try not to get discouraged. And I think the biggest thing that happened to me was I got very discouraged my first year because it was just such a huge change. I missed my friends from school. I was trying to understand how to be an adult with adult members of the company when I was just a kid. And I was trying to figure out my place. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was definitely a culture shock, and it really took me a while to adapt to that. Um, but in a way, I'm grateful for that experience because I feel like I grew a lot as a person. I learned a lot. Um, and then on top of it, I was going through puberty as well, and so my body was changing, and there were so many things that all kind of ended up convoluting in the first kind of 2.5 years of me being in San Francisco that um, it it created a really tough atmosphere for me to want to keep pushing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm stubborn and I'm consistent and and I one of the things I'm proud of myself looking back on is that I maintain that strong sense of self. I think that's something that's kind of inherent in me, but I never, while I wavered in some ways, which is totally normal, I also was clear about that I knew I wanted to dance. I knew I was a hard worker. I knew I had something to offer, whether I recognized that a lot of people had something to offer, but I knew I also had something to offer. And that kind of kept me going for a while until I started getting more opportunities. So whether it was a demi-soloist role or eventually a soloist role, to eventually principal roles when I was in the course. So I think I spent 1 year as an apprentice, uh, 5 years in the corps, and then I was promoted to soloist.
It's a tough transition on like you said in so many ways because people can be 16 to 18 or however, but in that age range where your body's changing, you also have to discover how to be an adult and deal with different things. And then on top of that, each company has its own cultures of like what's appropriate, what's not on these smaller levels. So
Yeah.
definitely a tough thing. Did you ever in those, especially in those first years, think that you maybe weren't like you didn't want to continue dancing, or that was never a thought?
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I think there were many times when I doubted in my own abilities and not necessarily in my desire though. And I think that's what's different is I just, because I was struggling, I thought, is this even worth it? I could go to school. You know, I got good grades in school. I got good test scores on my SATs. Like I could just go to college. Um, but the desire was always extremely strong for me, extremely. And I think that's kind of what saved me. That's what stopped me from quitting or moving on to something else. But there were many, many days where I thought I should just move on with my life. Many.
And I think it's always important for people to hear that because often it's easy to just think, oh, like they always had it easy. And that was not the case.
No, I don't, I think that's not the case for most people. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say everybody.
Right.
Everybody has their challenges, and it depends what their challenges might be different than your challenges, but they still are faced with challenges. And I believe that those moments are really what actually help shape you into the person that you become, and it can also help you become the person that you want to become, not just by default who you become, but who you want to become.
Absolutely.
So I feel that those first 3 years taught me all of that. And still to this day, I remember the Sasha that I was back then at 17, 18 years old. And I don't forget about her because I see her in a lot of people um, that I work with.
Yeah.
In a good way. I don't mean in a bad way.
No,
Yeah.
like I was in that place, and um, yeah,
I'm,
part of the difficult process sometimes.
yeah, yeah. yeah. So from there, I was promoted to soloist kind of unexpectedly. Unexpectedly in the sense of we were on tour in London and it was in the middle of a show and I had just done a ballet and I had to do two more ballets and I got promoted like during the intermission.
For those of you watching, our director Helgi Thomason, he some companies it'll be like, okay, at the end of the year everyone gets promoted at this time, or he, I think it's his favorite thing to spring upon someone in the most random, that what seems like the most random moment. And by the way,
And
so
I
tell us your
realized
story.
I was thinking about this the other day because we just had a slew of promotions at San Francisco Ballet, which was so great. And never one time, not even from apprentice to core, was I promoted with other people.
Really? It was always
Yes.
just you.
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's so crazy. But anyway, I don't think that was on purpose. Just so happened that way.
Right.
But so as a soloist, I ended up, obviously I was so happy to become a soloist, but I ended up missing a lot of the camaraderie of core work. Ironically, the thing that it was so hard for me at first,
Right.
I ended up missing it in the end. And this ability to work with people, and there's just like a sense of, again, teamwork in the core that you don't necessarily get as a soloist or as a principal.
True.
But I was super happy, and I felt like by that point I kind of found my stride in who I was, and I really by then had learned to work for myself, to really learn how to push myself. I don't know, I kind of felt like I hit my stride at that period of time. And I still had many people and things that I looked up to and wanted to work towards. But then I got injured. I was working quite a lot. I was in every ballet. This had been now for years that I was in almost every ballet. There was one season.
You didn't really have like a lull when you got promoted, because sometimes when people get promoted to soloist, it's hard to get cast because you're not able to do, or you're not doing the core work anymore, but you might not be doing the principal. That didn't
Right.
happen with you so much, right?
No, I was pretty lucky that I didn't experience that. I stayed busy.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that helped was since I was in the core, I was doing principal parts. Not all of them, obviously, but some. And so I was also doing principal parts as a soloist. And it wasn't like a leap to get there. It just kind of was already in the works. So no, for whatever reason, I kind of was saved from that quote unquote solo.
Because you're also a very beautiful dancer, and for me, like even when we were in the core together, you were always a principal. So
Well, thanks. That's how I felt about you. I remember. I mean, I'm just going to tell a story for the people, but I mean, you and I would just live in every moment of standing on the side in the core, like living.
yes,
living.
I think we would edge each other on without a doubt. Like, oh, I'm gonna hold this, or I'm gonna make this port bras bigger, and like.
And I remember Helgi being like, "You don't fit in the core, Sasha. You need to work harder."
Really told me like, okay, you need to tone it down, and but for me, I was like, yes, he noticed me.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't tell me tone it down, but he's like, "No."
Just no.
It was like, "You just don't fit in the core." And I was like, "Well, I don't know."
Pretty harsh on you in your first year.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. He was very, very honest with me, which I appreciate. Because I knew exactly what I needed to work on. I knew exactly what needed to change. But I also didn't really let his criticisms break me, which I feel happy about because
Impressed with how you handled his critiques and just kind of said, okay, and now I know, and I'm gonna work towards getting better.
yeah, and I that's basically how I did the first half of my career, which is got it. I know that this needs to change. This needs to change. This is what you're looking for. But what changed for me before I became a soloist, I think, was I stopped caring so much about what he thought I needed to be, and I just became what I thought I needed to be.
Nice.
And then all of a sudden, everything rolled into place. And that was, I think, a mix of things. Maturity. I mean, by then I was 21, and I kind of was growing up. I kind of looked back and thought, okay, trying to be what everybody else wants me to be is obviously not working, and I'm not happy. And I need to find a way where I can do this career that feels genuine and honest to me, but hopefully also guide me in the way that I want to go, in the direction that I want to go. Okay. So that for me was a huge turning point.
It's important to hear for sure, because I think as a young dancer, it's all you want to do is please. And being able to find that moment in yourself where you're going to work towards what you believe in is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not easy to find that. It's hard to break that cycle of wanting to please your teacher or the ballet master or your director. I mean, even still today, I want to please them, obviously. I care about what they think, but I also want to work for myself and be proud of the work that I'm doing. And it's a balance. It's a fine line, as usual.
Yeah, for sure. So talk about a bit about this injury that you had started to mention. That was really difficult, period.
It was, yeah. So I think it was made doubly more difficult because Helgi had told me that he had plans to promote me to principal. And then I got injured like two.
Learning Kitri and Don Q, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. I was learning Kitri and Don Q. See, you have a better memory than yeah, I was. um, and um, and about 2 weeks later, I got injured. With something that I didn't think was that serious at first, even though it was really dramatic. I was on stage, and actually Natasha Makarova was there setting Bayadere shades. And so I did 2 of the 3 shades variations, and that night, it was very late, I had been dancing all day, and I just was wearing soft shoes, and I pushed off onto point, and there was a pop in my foot. Ended up that I actually couldn't dance for a full year, and the doctors told me that I might never be able to dance again, which was obviously devastating.
And that's the worst thing you can hear.
Yeah, it just kind of makes you question everything, including, I think dancers have such a tendency to put a lot of their self-worth and identity in who they are as a dancer, which makes sense because we spend our lives doing this, so it's understandable. But that takes that away in a blink of an eye, and it really makes you evaluate what it is that you want to do with your life on a really deep level. At least that's what happened for me.
Right.
And I used that time to go to school. I would paint, but mostly I was really sad because I saw
like I'm not gonna dance. Or did you ever? Yeah. What was that thought process?
I mean, it's funny because it was kind of similar to my first few years in the company of hearing somebody tell you something and ingesting it and saying, oh, you're probably right. But then my gut was like, no,
I give up.
That's not going to happen. Yeah. And there were many days where I would cry and think, that's probably it. So, I should move on. But there were also many days where I thought, no, I know I can do this, and I know that that I can come back from this. I just have to be patient. So it was a fine line. But but eventually I did come back, surprisingly.
Yeah, you learned a lot physically as well, and you.
I did. I learned, one of the great things about it is I got to retrain my body completely from square zero. I retrained. Um, I had a completely different perspective on ballet, completely different. Yeah, because I think for a while, especially when I was in the company for 6, 7 years, I was like, am I just doing this because I've always done this? I love it, but should I, I was in my early 20s thinking I could still do something else if I wanted to.
It feels like that turning point because, I went through something similar of like, I don't know, do I want to keep dancing?
Yeah.
So,
And you don't realize until it's taken away from you how much you do, or maybe you don't, but you realize how you feel in those moments. And so I came back with, I guess, a new lease on my ballet life, I guess. And I felt so grateful for every single second that I had. Literally every minute in that studio was like a gem to me, and I still feel that way. That has not changed since that injury. That's the biggest thing that has changed for me, is this sense of, and as cheesy as it is, but excessive gratitude that I'm not entitled to this career just because I worked hard for it all my life. I'm lucky that I get to do this, and I'm lucky that I get to share what I love with people that appreciate it, hopefully. And that changed from that moment on, and it has stayed consistent since then.
I love hearing that because I mean, and I think I definitely know that that's true in how you work and how you present yourself on stage. And I really think that it radiates through your dancing too, in my opinion, that you feel how much you cherish these moments performing and dancing. And yeah, it's amazing to have to go through so difficult, but you were able to come through as so strong and with a new kind of lease on that look.
Thanks, Matt.
Um, what do you think, like, ballet is such a physical thing, but what do you think about our mental health in this career, and what are some of the things that you've found have helped you?
Yeah. For me, a healthy mind equals a healthy body. I don't think I'm the first person to say that, but it's been abundantly clear to me in my experience in this career. I guess starting off from when I was young and I was struggling with my body image and with my body changing and not necessarily the body that I thought I would have or that I was expected to have. Um, so that obviously messes with your mental health a little bit. But I found that the more I focused on feeding myself for the nutrients versus to create an image helped me a lot, which then allowed me to become a more happy person overall. I was less kind of obsessed with that. And
So you think like having that obsession over trying to control your weight or your body, that was a big struggle mentally?
yeah, yeah, I think it is for so many dancers. I think it's something that's not talked about super often, just because it's hard to talk about it. It's very sensitive. Um, it's something that could feel embarrassing or could feel kind of like, at least I felt like I had failed in some way because I couldn't control my body at that time. And it's hard to talk about, but I know it's so clear to me in so many ways now. Now I don't struggle with that as much anymore, luckily, but I I see the difference in my dancing when I am happy and when I'm not.
Yeah.
In so many different types of ways. One of them is literally just technical things all of a sudden become hard for me when I'm not having a good mental health day. And when I am, that's nothing that really passes through my head, and it's it's just like a flow that happens.
Yeah.
That I don't know if I'm making any sense
No.
with that. Okay.
I do want to ask, for those who feel like maybe they are struggling with how they're thinking about their weight, and what was for you that biggest change? You said a little bit about thinking about the nutrition, or
Yeah, so it was that. I think I had to kind of forgive myself. That was a little part of it, or maybe a big part of it, but that was a part of it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that there was one like light bulb aha moment that happened. It's just over time, my body started changing and going kind of back to its normal. It wasn't quite as, I guess, hormonal as it was, and it's just started to calm down. And it with patience, I think, and with a bit of forgiveness, self love, it all kind of settled down naturally. It wasn't some incredible force that I had to fight against. It wasn't anything. It just settled because I think mentally I settled with myself that, okay, this is what it is. I'm doing my best. I'm feeding myself nutritiously. I'm doing my best to work in a great way, fuel my body in a great way, and the rest, I cannot control that.
yeah.
And just like that, it also settled down.
And again, it kind of touches on how important both the mental and the physical side is and everything. I mean, I love that of forgiving yourself as well as self-love, and there's this goal of perfection within our career that is not attainable for anyone, because that
Right.
goal is always changing. And so to be able to feel proud of where you are and know your dreams but not allow those to crush you is a hard balance.
No, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Yeah. I, yeah.
And so now, like, as a principal, do you feel like you handle those pressures and those things in similar ways, or what are some of the things that you've learned over the last couple of years having to lead the ballets?
Yeah. I think I handle them a little bit differently. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the biggest thing for me that has changed is this sense of gratitude and non-entitlement.
Which is
So
because a lot of people get into that position and then they feel entitled, you know?
yeah, no. Actually, when I got promoted to principal, I got so nervous because I thought, oh my gosh, now I have this huge responsibility, um, and I have to live up to this. But it doesn't mean that it's mine, right? It's still something that I have to work for, and I still have a lot of work to become, one, the dancer I want to become, two, the person I want to become, etc.
And actually, while you say that, what are some of your goals of the person you want to become? Because I know that's something that I love hearing you talk about. I don't mean to stop your stream of consciousness, but yeah, I know that you take this role of principal dancer not just as the dancing part, but also as the human. So can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that goes through my head is that 16 and 17-year-old dancer that I was. And I remember being in that space, and I had a lot of people to look up to, but I also felt very disconnected from them. And I hope to be, and I don't know if I'm in any way succeeding in this, but I do hope to be, I'm not sure if a role model is quite the right word, but a person that younger dancers could come to if they feel like they need to talk to somebody who has been through something. I would hope that people can feel comfortable to come to me. I would hope that I can help create an atmosphere that's positive, that's healthy, that's not filled with too much animosity. Because I do think that I was very much aware of the power that the principals had, or the people in the front of the room. They can really control the energy of the room. And I remember that. And I try to make that a practice in my everyday life at work. And not that it's not genuine, it's very genuine, but it's also conscious.
And it's just conscious is what I would say, which is nice, because I think I could imagine that it would be easy when you have so much pressure put on you in different ways, on you yourself for putting pressure on, and then the ballet, and it would be easy to kind of just only think about yourself. But I always am so amazed at that you take things so humbly and do think about the whole process.
Well, I mean, thank you. It's not it's not just a principal dancer on the stage. It's all of us. It's the entire team. It's all of the dancers. It's the entire organization. I mean, really. And yes, there is a lot of pressure in being a principal dancer, and I do feel that. I can't deny that. But at the same time, I I know that together we're stronger. It's not just about me, and I know that maybe I can influence the people around me in a great way so that we all grow together versus just me. Because when we all grow together, it's a greater result for all of us.
Oh, I love that. Well, I could keep going forever talking to you.
I know, me too.
But I might actually, well, I'm going to see. There were some people watching on YouTube. I don't know how
Nice.
comments here. Oh, look, we have some comments. Um, Sasha, you are such an amazing dancer. So surprising to hear about your journey. Um, yeah, hopefully next time we'll have more comments. But I will end it there. And just want to thank you so much for being so open and going through your whole journey,
Yeah.
career. I know there's so much more to dive into that I want to hear. So we'll have to do an in-person version when all of this.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I just want to say you are such a well, first of all, I love what you guys are doing. But you are such an empathetic and thoughtful host. And it's really nice to talk to somebody like that, because I've watched the other interviews as well, and I feel like you're so great at putting yourself in other people's shoes, which allows also the viewer to see that. So thank you for being so great.
Oh, thank you.
And obviously just like a great friend and awesome dancer.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, so I appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna let you go. I think if I do this right, it will take you off the screen. We'll see. And thank you, Sasha. Goodbye. And oh no, I'm still learning this. Okay. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully, I know there was some volume problems. I'll try and fix that if I repost it. But I'm glad you could hear Sasha with no problem. And thank you for watching another episode of 6 Feet Apart with me. Benjamin Fremantle is going to be interviewing Harper tomorrow on his Instagram, so you can see more. Stay safe and healthy. Bye.